Hi everybody, so today we are going to learn about how to solve absolute value equations. So if you guys remember, absolute value are those bars that go around a number. So say we have the absolute value of -5, and it takes whatever's inside and it calculates its distance from 0. So what is absolute value? Absolute value is distance from 0. And so if we look at the absolute value of -5, and we have a number line, say 5, 4, 3, 2, -5, and we go up 1 every time. If it's the distance from 0, we're measuring how far it is to get from -5 to 0. And that is actually +5 units. So the absolute value of -5 is +5. The absolute value of +5 is also +5. So it basically takes everything that's inside those bars and takes the positive version of that, because distance is always positive. You wouldn't say that your friend lives -3 miles from your house. You would say your friend lives 3 miles from your house no matter what direction it's in. So if we want to find the distance between 4 and 10, we can make a number line if we wanted to. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And to get from 4 to 10, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the distance is 6. If we don't feel like doing that every single time, we can use the formula, which I'm going to write down here. It's the absolute value of A minus B, where A is one number and B is the other. So let's apply that formula to that second one. It's going to be the absolute value of -3 minus -8. And this is where we have to be careful, because -3 minus -8 is the same as -3 plus 8. So if we keep going, -3 plus 8 is +5, so the absolute value is going to be +5. If we do the distance between -2 and 6, -2 minus 6 is going to be the absolute value of -8. But the distance from 0 of -8 is actually +8. So make sure that if we're inserting negatives into that, we make sure we pay attention to that subtraction sign, because sometimes subtracting a negative will result in adding. So if we move on to our next slide, we're going to look at examples of absolute value equations. So what we talked about was that in the first example, we had the absolute value of -5 was equal to 5, but the absolute value of +5 is equal to 5. So that means when we do absolute value equations, there's a possibility of having two solutions. Just like this, we put in two different numbers and still got the same result. So what we need to do is, the first step in solving absolute value equations is to get the absolute value bars alone. So in this first example, the absolute value bars are already alone on that left side of the equation, so we don't need to do step 1 in this case. Let's move on to step 2, which is to split up into our positive case and a negative case. Because we had positive 5 and negative 5. So what we're going to do is split this up. This side will be my positive case, and this side will be my negative case. So both positive x can equal 12, and then the negative x can equal 12. We need to solve both of those equations, and this one is already solved, x equals 12. But the one on the right, we need x by itself, so we can divide both sides by -1. So we get x equals -12. So when we write our answer, we can write x equals -12, comma 12. Two solutions. If we plug both of those back in, the statement is going to be true. Let's look at the next one. Step 1, get the absolute value bars alone. The absolute value bars are already by themselves. There's nothing outside of them on that side, so we can split up into our step 2, which is our two cases. Our positive case and our negative case. So our positive case, all we have to do is drop the absolute value bars. But our negative case, remember that whole thing inside could be negative, so we need to have a negative outside our n plus 7 equal to 10. So that means that n plus 7 could be negative, so that represents that negative case. I'm going to go ahead and solve on the right side. So what I would do is subtract 7 from both sides. Remember the opposite operation. We're just solving equations now. So once I do that, those 7 and -7 cancel. I get n by itself, and 10 minus 7 is 3. So that's one solution. If you were to plug it back in, 3 plus 7 is 10. The absolute value of 10 is 10, so it works. This next one is our negative case. So we have that negative on the outside, so we have two choices. We can distribute the negative, or we can divide by it right away. I'm going to divide by the negative right away. And I'm left with n plus 7 equals -10. Then, just like the last one, it's adding 7, so I'm going to subtract 7 because it is the opposite operation. The positive 7 and the -7 cancel, and -10 minus 7 is -17. So if I were to plug that back in, -17 plus 7, I'll write it up here, -17 plus 7 equals 10. Let's see if that's true. -17 plus 7 is -10, and -10 is equal to 10, so both our answers check out. So I'm going to write n equals -17 and 3. Separate them by a comma. Go for the U-tries on this, and they'll be the end of the first video. There will be a second video with the new examples.